The year is 2025, and for the first time in almost 50 years, the name Marley no longer feels unbreakable. A single, quiet act has cracked the foundation of one of the biggest musical dynasties on Earth. Damian Marley, the youngest son of Bob Marley, the man the world crowned Junior Gong, the four-time Grammy winner who turned dancehall into global prophecy, has just severed every visible tie to the family legacy. No public fight, no tabloid war, no explosive interview, just a private DNA test, an undeniable result, and then a series of deliberate, irreversible steps that have left the entire reggae community in stunned silence. This is not gossip. This is not a rumor that will fade by next week. This is the moment a living legend chose raw, uncomfortable truth over the most valuable brand name in Caribbean music. And to understand how we got here, we have to go all the way back before the headlines, before the whispers, before the test itself, back to a hospital room in Kingston on a humid July night in 1978. Cindy Breakspeare, the reigning Miss World 1976, radiant, biracial, and undeniably magnetic, had just given birth to a baby boy. The father was listed as Bob Marley, the planet's most electrifying voice of rebellion and redemption. Bob was 33, riding the highest wave of his life. Exodus had been released the year before and was already being called the greatest album of the century. He was married to Rita Marley, the unbreakable matriarch of the Wailers. Yet his heart, like his music, refused to be contained by convention. 11 acknowledged children would eventually carry the Marley name, each one a different verse in the same revolutionary song. Damian Robert Nesta Marley entered the world already wrapped in mythology. Photographs from the time show Bob cradling the newborn, dreadlocks falling over the tiny face, a proud, almost prophetic smile. But destiny moves fast. Less than 3 years later, in May 1981, Bob Marley was dead at 36. The cancer that started under a toenail had spread mercilessly. Damian was 2 years old. Everything he would ever know about the man the planet worshipped would come filtered through vinyl, film, and the stories of others. He did not grow up in Trenchtown. He did not grow up in the concrete yards where his father learned to turn pain into poetry. Damian grew up in the cool, green hills of Stony Hill, one of Kingston's most affluent neighborhoods. His mother remarried a prominent white Jamaican attorney and politician, Tom Tavares Finson. The household was blended, cultured, privileged. Private schools, classical music on the stereo, chessboards instead of domino tables. His younger half-siblings were light-skinned. The contrast was impossible to ignore, and Damian has spoken openly about how early he became aware of the invisible lines that divide Jamaica: race, class, access, history. That awareness became the lens through which he saw everything, including the towering shadow cast by a father he barely remembered. By 13, he was already on stage, DJing with a crew called the Shepherds, children of reggae royalty trying to write their own chapter. At 17, he signed to Tough Gong, the label his father built. His 1996 debut, Mr. Marley, was respectful but cautious, heavy dancehall toasting over roots reggae rhythms. It did decent numbers, but it was clear he was still searching for his own voice. Then came 2005. Welcome to Jamrock exploded like a thunderclap over the entire planet. The title track was merciless. Gun violence, political corruption, the ugly underbelly of paradise, delivered by a man who grew up behind gates yet refused to pretend the gates weren't there. The album went double platinum. He won Grammy after Grammy. He headlined festivals on every continent. And still, every single magazine cover, every single interview, every single review carried the same subtext. Bob Marley's youngest son. He never fought the comparison publicly. He never leaned on it either. He rarely performed his father's classics. He rarely appeared on the big Marley family reunion stages. He built his own label, his own cannabis brand, his own sound that pulled from hip-hop, dubstep, Middle Eastern scales, anything but the obvious. And in 2010, he did something that, in hindsight, feels almost prophetic. He partnered with Nas, the poet laureate of Queensbridge, to create Distant Relatives, an entire album about ancestry, bloodlines, slavery, colonization, and the spiritual threads that connect the African diaspora. An album titled Distant Relatives, made by two men who felt like brothers, but were not related by blood. They sampled Ethiopian jazz, layered it over Jamaican percussion, and let Nas's bars cut straight to the bone about fathers, sons, and the weight of history. Damian produced every track. He poured himself into it like a man, trying to solve a puzzle he didn't yet have all the pieces for. Looking back now, the clues were hiding in plain sight. He skipped major Marley anniversary events. He declined invitations to headline the big Bob Marley tribute concerts. He turned down speaking slots at Marley Foundation galas. He kept a respectful, almost reverent distance from the machinery that turned his father's image into a billion-dollar empire. And every year that passed, the questions people were afraid to ask out loud grew a little louder. Then, in the quiet opening weeks of 2025, the question finally got an answer. Damian commissioned a private DNA test. No media circus, no advance warning to the Marley estate. Just a lab, a swab, and a result that landed like a bomb in slow motion. No genetic connection to Bob Marley. None. For a man who had spent 46 years navigating the single most recognizable surname in music, the revelation was seismic. Instead of denying it, instead of negotiating, instead of protecting the brand at all costs, Damian chose the path almost no one in his position would dare take. He walked away. Tour dates for Bob Marley's 80th birthday global celebration were removed from his calendar overnight. His name disappeared from posters, from press releases, from merchandise. He unfollowed every official Marley-related account on social media. A planned 25th anniversary remaster of Mr. Marley, originally pitched as a tribute to his father's influence, was quietly canceled. And on his official website, in the early morning hours of a day no one saw coming, a single sentence appeared. Sometimes the truth comes late, but it still comes. That was it. No follow-up statement. No tearful sit-down with Oprah. No angry diss track. Just that line, and then silence from every corner of the Marley universe. Rita Marley has said nothing. Cindy Breakspeare has said nothing. The estate has issued no denial, no confirmation, no comment at all. Some family members reportedly see it as betrayal. Bob accepted him, loved him, claimed him. That should have been enough. Others, in private, express understanding. After carrying someone else's myth for half a century, maybe a man deserves to know who he actually is. On stage now, the changes are subtle but unmistakable. No more Bob covers. No more Marley banners behind the drum kit. Visuals have shifted from red, gold, green lions to abstract roots pushing through concrete, masks breaking open, shadows turning into light. When fans shout requests for "Could You Be Loved?", he simply smiles, shakes his head, and keeps moving to the next song. Some promoters have even seen new writer contracts that list him only as Damian Robert, and the people closest to him say something remarkable. He looks lighter. He writes every day. The new music leaking out in sound checks is some of the rawest, most liberated material he's ever made. The empire his father built is not crumbling. Bob Marley remains the sun around which modern reggae still orbits. But for the first time, the Marley legacy has been forced to stare at a question it never had to ask before. How much of a legend is carried in the blood? And how much is carried in the spirit that chooses to carry it? Damian Marley spent nearly 5 decades answering to a name that, biologically, was never his. And when the truth finally arrived, late and uninvited, he did not rage against it. He opened the door, stepped through, and kept walking. Sometimes the heaviest chains are the ones the world mistakes for crowns. If this story hit you in the chest, let me know in the comments. Would you have had the courage to do the same? Like this video, subscribe, turn on notifications, because next week we're diving into another tale that will make you question everything you thought you knew about fame, family, and legacy. This is Tales of the Famous. One love. See you in the next one.